Do you find you can't get enough spooky goodness? Then by Jove, you need to check out the Generally Spooky Patreon. For the princely sum of £4 a month, you can enjoy our main episodes a whole day earlier than the general public. If that doesn't float your boat, you can become an £8 a month spooky trooper. You'll get the main episodes early and access to 12 extra Patreon exclusive episodes, with more to come. The episode that really tickles my pickle is about Private Wojtek, a brown bear that served in World War II. As a top draw £12 a month Spookmaster General, you'll be on Cloud 9 with access to our Wee Blether series. In it, my darling wife and I debrief episodes, play games, and chitter-chatter about our goings-on. You'll also become a member of the Spooky Book Club, where Eilidh is currently reading us Peter Pan, having just finished Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Simply marvellous. Did I mention you also get 10% off our quality merchandise if you join? You bet your bacon you do. So come join us. Get your peepers over to patreon.com/generally spooky and support your favourite rapscallions. Tally-ho!
Are you interested in stories of ghosts, poltergeists, and the paranormal? Do you love an amazing tale of an unsolved mystery, a strange disappearance? How about a UFO encounter, or even a first-hand sighting of a creature that should only exist in your nightmares? Why not join us over at the Haunted UK podcast, where every 2 weeks we delve deep into the tales of the strange and unusual, the unsolved and the downright weird. The Haunted UK podcast is available on all major platforms, as well as being on Instagram and Coffee. So why not give us a follow and get involved with the show? Thanks for listening, and we really hope that you'll join us for our next episode. And on that note, it's back to the show.
Got you.
You always win. You always win. We're back, and we've got the sillies.
We have the giggles.
Ready for another dose of spooky goodness.
Yes, this is the Generally Spooky podcast where I, Eilidh, tell my husband, Kieran,
hello,
a spooky historical story from Scotland's history. It's usually long, rambling, with lots of unimportant information that I think is interesting, so I put it in because I write the episodes, and we all have a good time.
Yeah. If you want the quick overview, you should go somewhere else.
Sorry, I'm physically incapable.
That's not what we do here. And I'm here to interrupt Eilidh, as I did just then.
I even catch myself while I'm writing, just like, what are you doing? This is too much.
Never too much.
Sometimes it's too much.
Never too much. Well, we're recording the next day from when we last recorded, so I don't have anything else to add for the intro. Should we dive in?
Yeah, we recorded the Operation Cauldron episode yesterday, and we're just having loads of fun, so we're recording again.
Yeah. Oh, and all I know of this episode is we're going abroad.
Yes, I hinted. I don't know if it'll still be in the episode, because I don't do the edit.
Well, it was on the Patreon, so it was never in the episode. But
gotta go over to the Generally Spooky Patreon for all that sweet content. Yes, I hinted in our Wee Blether that we do after the main episode every week over on Patreon that this week we are travelling abroad. Scotland abroad was how Kieran described it, and that doesn't really work.
Yep, the Broads of Scotland.
Again, that's something different.
Incorrect. Oh. Well, it's kind of cold here, so I'm looking forward to going abroad. Roll the music. Well, what do you have for us today?
Well, do you have any guesses about where we might be going this episode?
I really don't. I have no clue.
No
Nothing
thoughts
at all.
in that brain?
Not a one.
Well, I can say you're not ready for this episode.
Well, I wasn't ready for last episode.
This is better.
Oh,
this is not as grim.
Well, thank goodness for that. That was some recovery time required after that.
Yeah, but I still don't regret it. It's an awful story, and it was awful to do and research and everything. I don't regret it.
I don't think you should. Well, okay, what am I not ready for today?
Well, this week we are talking ancient Egypt and a mummy's curse.
Oh, shit! It's 10-year-old Kieran's dream.
I know!
Well, I'm hooked.
But in Scotland.
I am very much hooked. Does it have anything to do with the sarcophagus you can see at the Kelvin Grove Museum in Glasgow?
I forget which one that is.
No idea.
So no.
Okay. That's all I've got.
I've been really excited to do this one. I think you are going to really enjoy it. It has that like magical story quality about it that we don't get all the time.
It'd have to. Does it have anything to do with ancient aliens?
No.
That's good.
Thankfully.
That's a relief.
Thankfully, because that's stupid.
Yep.
Our story centres around a man called Sir Alexander Hay Seton and his wife Zayla, which is spelt Zeyla. Alexander was born into a very wealthy, titled family. He was the 10th Baronet Seton.
Ooh. Oh, hey, Seton.
So, well off.
Yes.
But strangely, compared to other titled families that I've looked into from Scotland, this family history was really confusing to look back at.
Oh, you've had that for a few of them.
This one was particularly bad though. Like, I couldn't get anywhere with it.
Oh, dang.
Usually I can find the right branch and I can follow it back.
Mm-hmm.
But with this one, it was really hard.
Is a baronet a smaller baron?
Not in size. He wasn't like 5'4".
If it depends on when he was born, he might have been 5'4", I suppose.
He seems pretty tall.
Okay.
In the photos I've seen, he is pretty tall. But no, that's not what that. It's just a different title, I think. I think it's below a baron.
I am shocked.
I don't know. I don't do research for this. I don't know.
You just come on an ad lib for 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's good work.
It's my superpower.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were different branches of Setons. And when I tried to look into the records, it was difficult to tell who was who. It's not very well chronicled. I found an old book that basically chronicles Alexander's entire family history. And then I found his entry in it.
That sounds pretty good. That sounds useful and relevant.
Well, it wasn't in any particular order, it seemed like, because it talked about him and his brother, his father, but then this random relative. And I didn't see the... Anyway, I do have some things to tell you about Alexander.
Yeah, what did you glean from the confusion of his family history?
Well, there's not a lot of information out there about him, but he was born in 1904 in India.
Okay.
Which is where his family were living at the time. Dicey, being a wealthy British family living in India in the early 1900s.
It's not great.
He had a very good upbringing with every opportunity afforded to him, as you would expect. He liked shooting. He was apparently very good at it. He had a keen eye and he was big into sports.
Just the locals he was shooting?
We're going to get there. Okay. He went on to join the army where he actually competed in their hammer throwing competition, which is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
Very difficult to throw the hammer.
I don't think I've ever tried. I imagine it'd be quite hard.
Athletics at school? You never did that?
No, couldn't afford a hammer at our school.
we did at our school.
Yeah?
We had... like sports day. So they had javelin and you had shot put, hammer throw and discus.
We had the other three, but not hammer throw. I've also tried tossing a welly. We did that at like a Highland Games day.
That's basically the same.
Yeah. Also very difficult.
It's not easy. My mum had the record in her high school for, was it shot put or discus? Can't remember.
Good work.
I was good at shot put.
Oh, yeah?
I got a bronze medal in shot put when I was in school.
Oh, get you. Throwing, I was just medium. I could do it a bit.
I read about a nasty incident that happened when Alexander was still in India that resulted in him and his father being fined for assault on an Indian man.
Oh.
The report went that Alexander caught this Indian man trying to assault his sister. So he chased him down out of their house and then beat the crap out of him. And then I read that he tied him up with a sporran strap.
Okay.
Yeah. The Indian man was arrested and sentenced to a year in prison for allegedly assaulting Alexander's sister, which, if it happened, is awful.
Yep.
And I would probably do what Alexander did in his situation.
Well, yeah, it's not an unreasonable reaction.
No, if that is the truth, I don't know either way. But after this Indian man, I couldn't find his name either. That's a problem. Like they haven't even named him in a lot of accounts. But after his arrest, lots of stories started running in local papers about this incident, and it left a bad feeling in a lot of people's mouths. If you didn't know, the British Empire had a nasty habit of staying where they were not welcome. And this was the case in India.
It's a very, I don't know, diplomatic way to put it, isn't it?
It's because it's skating on the truth,
Yeah.
really. Because the British Empire just seems to have been fucking terrible.
Yeah.
So when stories ran about the son of a British officer attacking an Indian man, people were upset.
It's not great.
Because it was part of a very unfair pattern that had been happening for a long, long time.
Uh-huh.
So even if Alexander was protecting his sister from someone who was attacking her, that's not the message that came across in the papers.
Yeah.
And people saw the differences in status and they were angry at what Alexander had done.
Again, rightly so.
Yeah, I can understand it. I can see both sides in this, but I don't know what's true.
Impossible to say.
The Indian man, again, I'm really sorry I'm not naming him. I couldn't find his name anywhere. He was released from prison because of the backlash, and that's when Alexander and his father were fined over the assault.
Ah. Oh, that's strange. It's hard to have an opinion without knowing the truth.
However, I also read that following all of this happening, Alexander got lots of letters and telegrams from people who supported him and what he'd done. So it was a mixed bag, but all in all, a very nasty business.
Yeah. Quite a scandal to get caught up in.
Yeah, and just not something you want your name attached to or something you want to be involved in.
No.
It doesn't look good. I mentioned it earlier, but Alexander pursued a career in the army. He started out in the Territorial Army in 1924 and then joined like the full army, a couple of years later. And he was in the Royal Scots Regiment.
There you go. Is that the Territorial Army in India?
Yes, he hadn't come back to the UK yet. Yet. He took part in the hammer throwing competition during his time in the army. But in his training to compete, he injured himself really, really badly.
Oh, yeah?
Quote, he damaged himself very seriously internally and had to go on the sick list. This led ultimately to his being placed on half pay, unquote.
Oh, no. From hammer throwing or something else?
From training for hammer throwing.
Oh, God. Did he just accidentally hammer himself in the stomach somehow?
I don't know. He done fucked up.
Yeah.
Like internal damage.
Internal damage. It's not good.
So it was something serious, whatever happened to him. And he had to be placed on half pay. He couldn't perform his duties.
Well.
When he recovered, he joined an attaché ship, which I think meant that he wasn't in combat. He was taking part in diplomatic affairs.
Interesting.
I think that's what attaché ships did.
Oh.
They did things to do with diplomacy between countries. And this was in 1930, so this is pre-World War II.
Well, he didn't do a very good job at it then, did he?
I think we know who's to blame for that entire Second World War. It's this guy. This guy.
Fucked it up. Should have tried harder.
But I read he was also involved with the Secret Service.
Well, that's always fun.
And coincidentally, I couldn't find much about his service during World War II.
Ooh.
So I have a sneaky suspicion as to what he might have been doing.
Was he spying, perhaps?
I think so. In 1927, before he joined the attaché ship, Alexander married Zela, whose maiden name I think was Sanderson. And at this time, I believe they were living in Edinburgh together.
Oh, cool.
His family were from Scotland originally. So they were living in Edinburgh. The only record I found of her was a fine that she got in 1930 for obstructing North Street in Guildford, Surrey, with a motor car and then failing to produce her driving licence.
Man, that's leaving behind a record and a half, isn't it? It's an unusual name, Zela.
Very unusual. Very unusual. But that's it. I don't know anything about her. That's it.
It's not much to go on, is it? It's always a shame.
From what I understand, her family was wealthy. And I'm bolstered in that opinion because she married Alexander.
Seems likely.
And I've seen photos of her. She's very pretty. She had short, bright blonde hair and really big eyes. She's kind of what you would imagine thinking about a woman from the 1930s. She has that look. But I can't tell you much about her other than the fact she got fined for just abandoning her car in the middle of the road. And then when she was asked to show her driving license, she just told them to get bent.
Maybe she didn't have one.
Maybe. But they have kind of a typical situation between the two of them getting married, because he's the army man from a family with a prestigious title, set to inherit, married to a very traditionally feminine, beautiful wife, younger than him. You can picture it. It's a scenario I feel like we've all seen before and we've talked about before.
Well, it's all very typical so far, so I want to know how we're getting to Egypt from here.
Well, the next line in my script, Kieran, is everything changed in 1936. After Alexander and Zayla took a trip to Egypt.
Okay. You just play me like a fiddle, aren't you?
I know how to lead you through a yarn.
Yep. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty standard.
If I have you so well trained and conditioned now, you know what's coming next. That's why you were wondering that, because I set you up. I'm in your brain.
Does this happen to the listeners at home, or is this just me? Were you also wondering that? Is it just me? Don't know.
So, 1936, there was a major fascination and obsession over ancient Egypt throughout the Western world by 1936. It was pretty well established by this point. How much do you know about ancient Egypt, Kieran? How much should I explain?
I don't know. I don't know what the scale is. A bit, not much.
Do you know anything about ancient Egypt?
I know they built pyramids. I know they buried their pharaohs in the centre of these pyramids, usually, surrounded by all the lavish riches that they would take to the next life. I think they were like 3,000 to 5,000 BC.
Very early on, yes. Well, when you think of ancient Egypt, you probably think of pyramids, hieroglyphics, the Nile, and mummies.
Mummies.
All happening from around 3000 BC.
Yeah.
Ish. But there's different kingdoms of Egypt in different eras. The Romans invaded Egypt around 30 BC.
Oh, yeah.
But ancient Egypt was there long before.
Yes.
Just to give you some scale.
Well, because Cleopatra was in Egypt while the Romans were about, wasn't she? I think. So also when you said mummies, I started thinking of Scooby-Doo being chased by mummies.
That's what you get in your head, isn't it? There's a reason for that, which we're going to talk about. The ancient Egyptians embalmed and mummified their pharaohs, their royalty, and other important figures to ensure that they made it to the afterlife. And they tended to get special treatment because mummifying someone was very expensive. And I read a lot about the belief system behind this, actually. It's pretty interesting, the reason they went to such lengths to do this. This is from the Smithsonian. Oh,
because that I don't know much about. I had it was either a Horrible Histories or a Horrible Science, which are a series of kids' book in the UK about the Egyptians that went into all the gory details about what mummification involves. Lots of stuff being taken in and out of your nose, mainly.
Yeah.
All very grim. I remember reading that as a kid who'd been like, ew, gross.
That is their market. That is what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's the whole series.
Well, yes, this is from the Smithsonian, and this is more about the why they used to do it, if that interests you.
Yes, it does.
The idea of spirit was complex, involving really three spirits, the Ka, Ba, and Ak. The Ka, a double of the person, would remain in the tomb and needed the offerings and the objects there. The Ba, or soul, was free to fly out of the tomb and return to it, and it was the Ak, perhaps translated as spirit, which had to travel through the underworld to the final judgment and entrance to the afterlife. To the Egyptian, all three were essential.
Interesting.
So you mentioned all the treasures and things in the tomb. That was part of the reason for that.
Okay. Is there some sort of legend, you might not have come across it, when they're travelling to the underworld, where they meet a giant sphinx and they have to answer his riddle?
I'm not sure about the Sphinx. I can't remember.
It's a big lion or something.
We did a bit about Egyptians in school.
Did you?
Which was really cool. But I know a bit about the final judgment that they had to face. If they made it down to the underworld, they had to have their spirit weighed against a feather.
Oh, okay.
And if you weren't a good person, then the feather would be lighter. And then you'd be eaten by this like big crocodile monster.
Oh, no.
But about the Sphinx, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Not sure what that is. That's cool, though.
So you had to be a good person
to
face judgment. And you had to, I don't know if you had to weigh the same as a feather or lighter than a feather. But yeah, you'd be eaten by a giant crocodile thing.
Oh, no. That wouldn't be very nice.
So the pyramids were built to be the tombs for the great pharaohs, like you said, and who were considered deities themselves in a way. Like they were at least closer to the gods, if not like godlike themselves.
Yes.
And in Luxor, there's the Valley of the Kings, which housed several tombs, which you may have heard of before.
Yep, that rings a bell.
The Valley of the Kings would prove to be very important, not just to the study of Egypt, but also to our story today.
Oh, I'm so curious. Does he go into... Because... Too many questions at once. Let's take a beat here. I want to know, does he discover a pyramid? Because, they've been seen before. It's hard to hide a pyramid. And when I say discover, I mean discover by a British person. Obviously other people know it's there. But does he go into one? Does he explore in one? I want to know.
It's okay, we're going to get there.
Yep.
We're going to get there.
I want to let you know what my thoughts are, what I'm wondering.
How fast your mind is racing.
Yep.
In 1922, a man called Howard Carter was working to excavate the Valley of the Kings. You may have heard of Howard Carter before.
I have not.
If you're listening, you may have heard of Howard Carter before. He decided to excavate some of the workers' huts, so like the ancient workers' huts that were on the site. And when these were cleared out, a water boy stumbled on a stone that turned out to be the top of a flight of steps.
Oh, cool.
So further digging and exploration by Carter revealed lots of clues and hints that they had stumbled onto something very important. That they had actually stumbled onto another tomb.
Oh, shit. It must be quite hard to dig in the sand.
Yes, famously.
Yeah, and like just trying to excavate a desert can be very easy. When every time a wind comes past, it just fills in everything you've dug out.
A distinctive symbol was noticed on the outside of what Carter suspected was a tomb. And this was the symbol of Pharaoh Tutankhamun.
Oh, shit.
You may have heard of him.
I have heard of him. I was thinking Imhotep.
That's from The Mummy.
Yep.
Brilliant movie. One of my favourite movies.
And just for this, did you say Mike Carter? I've forgotten his name already.
Howard Carter.
Howard Carter, I'm just picturing as Brendan Fraser.
No.
Well, that's what I'm going to do for this story.
No.
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
Okay, you're going to regret it though, because Brendan Fraser is just the best and Howard Carter is not.
Oh, is he not? Oh, okay.
Brendan Fraser is too pure and too great to be compared to this guy. We'll get there.
Okay.
The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 is one of the most well-known and significant archaeological finds in history. And it kick-started a new wave of Egyptomania, which is the technical term.
Oh, yeah?
I haven't made that up. That's what this is. People had been fascinated with ancient Egypt for a long time, but the fascination had been there. It didn't start with Carter's work, but he kind of kick-started a new wave of it. Herodotus, an ancient Greek historian, wrote about Egypt.
Him I have heard of.
He wrote about Egypt, which just, like, the two blending together messes with my brain.
I think because he travelled around and he recorded the, 7 wonders, like the Colossus at Rhodes and all these other things. That was his writings, I think.
Well, he was writing about the Egyptians.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
Napoleon led an entire campaign through Egypt to try and document its history.
Oh.
And the Rosetta Stone was discovered in 1799 by the French and then deciphered in 1822.
Oh, very cool.
So this is a long time. People have been interested in ancient Egypt for a long while.
Yep.
But when relics, treasures, and then Tutankhamun himself were recovered from the hidden tomb, Carter started traveling the world sharing his story. And crowds were just enthralled by ancient Egypt and the idea of the mummy. So that's what brought on this wave.
It's totally fair, isn't it?
Right? Because it's fast. And I think everyone has that about Egypt, ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
Everyone goes through a period as a kid where just you're obsessed.
Yep.
I had that Egyptology book.
You've talked about that before.
Oh, it was brilliant. If you have kids, highly recommend. There's a dragonology book. Egypt, they're brilliant. You open it up and there's like little pockets with things inside them, and brilliant.
Very cool.
However, it's not all as simple as Howard Carter discovering this tomb and being all good to lift out all the treasures and take them wherever he wanted. The process of excavating sites across Egypt was fraught with problems, and Carter, in my opinion, was kind of scummy.
Well, yeah, like, did he ask anyone in Egypt?
It wasn't all rosy. Before he started working in the Valley of the Kings, Carter was forced by his bosses to leave one of the sites he was excavating because he was accused of stealing from a tomb.
Ugh.
And if you found things in a tomb, they were supposed to be handed over and dealt with by the Egyptian Department of Antiquities, I believe.
That makes a lot more sense.
You know, to stop people stealing priceless pieces of history.
Yeah.
From a country you don't come from.
Yep.
I'm very passionate about this subject. So when Carter discovered Tutankhamun's tomb, he understood what a big find this was. He had the past experience. He had been in Egypt for a while. There was so much in there. He was kind of overwhelmed. And at first he could only see through a tiny hole in the doorway. But eventually they found 5,000 items in this tomb.
Oh my days. And then he just thought it was just Tutankhamun, come on down and help yourself.
That would be a brilliant game show phrase. You know, like, there's a game show in the US, Pyramid. Why didn't they do that?
Gotcha.
Oh. When the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb was made, so he had seen all of this, he knew it was in there, Carter was supposed to seal off the tomb. He wasn't supposed to go in and contact the Egyptian Department of Antiquities and report the find.
Yep.
So that they could be there when the tomb was officially opened. Make sense?
Makes total sense. But I imagine he just got big dollar signed for eyes and started drooling.
Well, see, it's more than the money. It seems like it's more than the money. It's just the entitlement. And in a weird way, passion for the history. But it's very misplaced.
Yeah, okay. That makes it a bit better.
Well, because he wasn't... I mean, he became very famous from it. But it seemed like he just wanted things for him, and it was about the status of the thing.
That's fair.
So he was supposed to seal off the tomb, report the find, but Carter, along with several others on his team, and the guy financing the excavation, went back to the tomb that night in secret and broke in. So they were the first modern people inside this tomb, and none of them were Egyptian.
It's just a damn shame, isn't it? That's how you get yourself cursed.
Well, yep, we're going to get there.
Okay, it's all right.
But that is how you get yourself cursed.
It is. Well, that's a shame.
Yeah, it's even suggested that they made their way into the inner burial chamber of the tomb before they were supposed to be inside the place at all.
Yeah.
Because there was a hole into the burial chamber that was discovered that was big enough to crawl through. So they had broken all the way in.
Oh.
With no officials or authorities there.
It would be quite the adventure if it wasn't so inappropriate.
Well, that's just it. It's a huge part of Egyptian history.
Yeah.
It's not yours. You can't be doing that.
No. Just a bit of a shame, isn't it?
Between 1924 and 1925, so this is after the discovery, Carter refused to continue his work cataloguing the items in the tomb because he felt that the Egyptian authorities were taking, quote, excessive control.
Which just mean they weren't letting him do whatever he wants, presumably.
Well, it sounds like he spat the dummy.
Yeah.
Because they weren't happy with the way he was doing things. And there was lots of suspicion happening at that time. But he got his way. They conceded that he should carry on his work because it took until 1932 to catalogue everything. It took 10 years.
Well, I suppose if there's 5,000 items, it would, wouldn't it?
And he was one of the most knowledgeable. So they kind of needed him.
Ooh, that's a rock and a hard place.
Carter retired after this work was done, once he finished with King Tut's tomb. And then he died in 1939 when he was 64.
Yeah.
But it came out much later that there were multiple items in Carter's possession that he stole from Tutankhamun's tomb and kept for himself.
You can't just take a souvenir on the grounds that, well, I found it. They wouldn't have anything if I didn't find it.
He had several things in his possession.
Ooh, it sounds very much like it all went to his head. Does the, well, I found this and I did this and I'm the reason we have this at all.
You see what I mean? It wasn't, because if it was about the money, he would have sold those things.
Yeah.
He kept them. He wanted them for himself. And I think he felt he had a right to them. But you don't have a right to history.
Nope.
That's my opinion anyway.
I think so. I'd agree with that.
These items were initially discovered when the wishes in his will were carried out, but nothing was said at the time in 39 so that the relationship between Britain and Egypt wouldn't suffer.
Okay.
Because the person who was carrying out his wishes found these items and had to do something with them and knew they were obviously stolen.
Ooh, that's tricky, isn't it?
Some of the stolen items were sold back to the Egyptian Museum.
Sold back?
Yes, which is in Cairo, by the way, if you're interested. But some of them were bought by the Metropolitan Museum in New York, but were eventually given back to the Egyptian Museum.
Oh, well, that's good.
Where they should have been all along.
Well, yeah, it's good in the end, but...
There's a suggestion that when Carter said the Egyptian authorities were taking excessive control, this was because they full-on locked him out of Tutankhamun's tomb because they knew he was stealing.
Well, yeah. you just almost hear him with his pockets jangling with gems, and I can't even imagine what else they find in there, to be honest. But.
Well, they found a wooden bust, like a wooden head of Tutankhamun. Hidden. This is the authorities. They found one hidden in a crate when the excavation was happening.
Yep.
And they were surprised because this artifact hadn't been officially reported as being discovered.
Oh, no.
And Carter basically just said, well, I hadn't written it down yet. Like, God. But it was hidden in a crate.
It was never getting written down.
See, there was lots of different things. And there was an amulet that Carter was confirmed to have stolen. He sent it to another academic to have it examined and translated.
Yep.
And the man he sent it to, Alan Gardner, had the amulet checked by a third party at the Egyptian Museum, who confirmed that it exactly matched other amulets they discovered in the tomb, because it had been made using the same mould.
Oh, that's clever.
So it was definitely an amulet from Tutankhamun's tomb that he had no business having.
Well, good guy, Mr. Gardner.
Well, Gardner knew he'd stolen it, and he called him out in a letter, raging that Carter had implicated him in the theft, because he hadn't told the Egyptian Museum where he got it from.
Bold.
Because he suspected it was stolen.
Yep.
But it's just so bad.
So bad.
But nothing came out until quite recently.
Oh. It's weird. It's almost like a different type of greed. Mm-hmm. Because it's still greed, but it's not monetary greed. But if he's stolen them silently, it's not status either. It's just this weird possessiveness.
Mm-hmm. I feel like empire has a lot to do with it. Believing in the idea of British Empire.
Yeah.
Because you get that all the time with people taking souvenirs from places. There's a huge debate happening just now whether the British Museum should give back the Parthenon marbles.
Oh, yeah.
That's a huge thing because Greece wants them back. They were stolen. And they haven't been properly cared for since. And the argument given for not returning them to Greece is that they won't look after them properly.
Yep.
Which is so condescending. But they've been damaged while they've been in British hands.
Well, you can't blame them then, can you?
They should be given back. And that's only one example, too.
Yeah.
This is still a current debate with a lot of artefacts, and a lot of them have been gathered through expansion of empire.
Yeah.
And people just taking what they feel they can take. Why wouldn't they? It's my collection. I can have this.
It's not good.
No.
Not good.
But I talk about all of this because I really need you to understand the hype and the fever that surrounded ancient Egypt.
I forgot that's not what we were here to talk about.
No. No. But this is how, like, people were so eager to see these things for themselves. Like, they wanted to be a part of ancient Egypt. So they wanted to see it and experience it. That's why Carter's talks were so popular.
I would go to his talks, you know, if I was there at the time. I would totally have been swept up in that.
And it's why people wanted to visit Egypt. Because they had all this hype back home. But there was another thing that added to the buzz around ancient Egypt and the discovery of these ancient tombs. Curses.
Okay. Now we're getting to the good stuff.
If this was on your mind, you brought it up right at the beginning. The legend goes that when Carter and his team opened Tutankhamun's tomb, they released or activated a curse, which led to the deaths of many who were part of the excavation.
Ooh.
We'll talk about curses a little bit more in depth later on, but this was part of the buzz and the hype. And it's with talk of ancient Egyptian curses that our protagonists come back into the picture.
Oh, okay. Whose name? Wait, I'll remember his name. Mr. Alexander Hay Seton.
Good job.
Thank you.
And his wife?
And his wife, Zayla.
Hey.
Who was once fined for blocking off some street somewhere in her car.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about it more later, but I don't believe in curses. No one will be surprised to hear.
Well, just hold on to that thought.
Okay.
Because I'm going to present both sides of the coin.
Because my first thought was like, yeah, can you believe it? Everyone who was in that tomb is now dead. Like, what, 100 years later? Wow.
No. I'm going to show you both sides.
Okay.
But Alexander and Zayla were on their trip to Egypt in 1936.
Yes.
Themselves a part of this Egyptomania.
Oh, yeah, so 36.
Yes.
And the tomb was discovered in
1922.
22.
Yes. So it's been happening for a while and everyone wants a piece of Egypt.
Yep.
As I said before, they had a lot of money. So they were really able to get around. And I think Alexander was being paid to write like articles that were sent back about his time in Egypt that were published. Cool. So that was also funding their trip. Alexander retold his experience in Egypt and what happened after in his memoir, which was called The Transgressions of a Baronet. So he wrote about all of this himself in a book.
Okay.
And I'm going to be referencing it quite heavily.
Interesting.
Alexander and Zayla visited Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of Kings. And Alexander said in his memoir that it was actually the only one worth visiting in the Valley of Kings because he found the whole thing quite disappointing. Which is mental.
That is mental. I've heard that more recently about somebody who went on holiday to Egypt. I'm like, oh, how are the pyramids? And like, oh, it's just kind of rubbish. It was like a 3-hour bus ride in the blazing heat. And then you just look at the pyramid and come back again. I'm like, well, what else did you think the pyramids would be in the middle of a desert?
I would still go.
I would go.
100%.
Yeah, so, oh, well, is that it? I'm like, oh, did you think there'd be a theme park as well?
You're looking at ancient pyramids. Anyway. They stayed in Cairo. They saw the pyramids of Giza, which is what you were describing. They saw the Sphinx. They were doing everything. They were seeing everything. One evening, they were approached by their guide, who's an Egyptian man called Abdul, and he told them that there were tombs that had just been discovered behind the Great Pyramid. So that's the big one.
Oh, shit.
And I'm talking just discovered. Like, brand new. Abdul told them that they could watch the, quote, finishing stages of one of these tombs being examined, which was going on the next day, unquote.
Well, hell yes to that.
That's how newly discovered it was.
Damn.
And obviously, I mean discovered, not a new tomb.
No.
Abdul said that these tombs were not of any great historical value. But if Alexander and Zayla wanted to, he would organise for them to visit the tomb. His brother would be able to sort it out for them.
I know a guy, don't worry.
For a price.
Obviously.
Because they were not supposed to be there.
Yep.
Alexander explains in his memoir that when Abdul presented his offer, he had a really bad feeling.
Oh, yeah?
He didn't feel good about it. He really didn't want to go. He didn't think it was a good idea. But Zayla was the complete opposite. She was thrilled and she seemed desperate to go and check out these tombs.
That is exactly how it would go for me and you. Except I would be thrilled and you'd be like, nope.
No.
Going to a brand new tomb. Like, hell yeah, going to a brand new tomb.
Bad juju. Don't do it.
Don't do that.
So she really fought to persuade Alexander that they should go. And Alexander says in his memoir, when it came to people, especially tourists, visiting these tombs, especially a newly discovered one, I would imagine, the Egyptians were very much against it.
Well, everyone who keeps doing it keeps stealing things.
Yes.
So I can see why.
So he didn't feel good about it.
Nope.
And he knew a lot of other people didn't feel good about it. But Zayla managed to convince him. So they decided to visit this tomb.
My wife has that power also.
Still don't have a new kitchen, but we'll get there. It was a really early start for them the next morning because they were going at the crack of dawn to visit this tomb. They were taken to the Great Pyramid, but my understanding is that their guide basically snuck them in.
Okay, so we're just going to like head down this way, so if you'd like to just get into this crate.
Kind of, yeah, or just sneaking into the tomb. They were not supposed to be there. Alexander describes it as being, quote, pre-mummy era, unquote, which was a thing. There was a certain era in ancient Egyptian times where they were mummifying people.
Got you.
So this was before that, proving he's very much the amateur historian, like myself. And he explains that at one point, the whole tomb had been filled with mud from the River Nile, which I guess is why no one had discovered it before.
Makes sense.
I have a little bit from Alexander's memoir to read to you of them entering the tomb.
Ooh, hit me.
We went down some roughly hewn rock steps, about 30 of them, and there, lying on a stone slab and uncovered, was the remains of a skeleton. Water and mud had removed most. You could see the skull quite clearly and the leg bones, but few ribs were left, although the spine was almost intact.
Gross.
Our guide told us that it was the body of a high-class girl, but there was no question of her being a princess. I couldn't find out her age, nor could I find out her name. Time had erased that information. But that she was one of the countless hundreds that have been unearthed from behind the pyramids, there is no doubt. The antiquity of the bones could be seen by the fact that although as light as a feather, they would crumble very soon. As we left, I remember thinking to myself how strange that one day someone may be looking at my bones and wondering what the devil the owner looked like.
Ooh.
I said a small prayer and then made the others come on up into the sunshine and life. Zayla seemed fascinated by it and slipped back past us to have one more look. I was only too glad to have a smoke.
That's freaky.
He didn't like it.
I wouldn't like that.
But he seems pretty awestruck. It seems to have had a big impact on him, but he didn't like being there.
I can't say I would enjoy that.
See how your mind has changed?
Yeah.
I was right all along.
You walk in, see a skeleton and be like, oh yeah, tomb. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, let's just get out of here, shall we?
And I think it would have been very impactful because it's not a visitor attraction. They've opened it up and it looks as it has done probably for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that it looked very similar when it was closed up initially.
Spooky.
Which would make it a lot eerier. It's not as sterile.
No. Even like no ropes, no cordoned off, no stuff cleaned up so you can see it better.
Mm-hmm. This is what it is. This is a tomb.
Yep. That's a tomb.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately for Alexander, he would absolutely come to regret this visit to this tomb. And he would regret letting himself be convinced against what was his better judgment.
Does he get cursed, perhaps?
Well, The couple went back to where they were staying in Cairo after this excursion on their holiday. But before they went back, Alexander offered to buy Zayla some souvenirs from the actual souvenir shop that they had at the pyramids.
Yep.
Which is a crazy thought that exists. But I'm glad it exists, because hopefully it stops people just wrecking shit.
Yep.
He offered to buy her some souvenirs. She didn't want any. But when they got back, they had a relaxing evening, chilling out. Alexander says he had a relaxing bath. But that was when Zayla revealed that she had something to show him.
Oh, no.
If your stomach just sank, you have very good instincts.
Some Zayla light fingers, perhaps?
Zayla told Alexander that she hadn't needed any souvenirs from the souvenir shop because she had the perfect souvenir from their visit to this ancient tomb.
It's not a bone, is it?
Zayla took a bone.
Oh. Why? I
don't know.
Tell me why, Eilidh.
But this is also why I had to explain just the hype about Egypt. To explain why on earth someone would do that. Because if I just came in cold, you would have absolutely no idea.
Nope.
But when you fit it into this wider context, you're just like, oh, that's so stupid. Why did multiple people do that?
Yeah, why was just that was the brag?
Yeah, she showed him a bone that she had taken from the skeleton in this tomb.
Well, she shouldn't have gone done that.
No.
She shouldn't have gone done that.
No. When Alexander saw it, he described it as looking like a digestive biscuit and the shape of a heart. But like a love heart.
Yeah. Not just a fossilized heart.
No. From his descriptions of it, I wouldn't go so far as to say he was immediately super disapproving. Like, I don't think he was impressed, but he didn't lose his temper and he didn't demand that she return it. I think he was just like, what are you doing? Ugh, like, get that away from me.
I was just like head in hands, just rubbing your eyes, just being like, what did you do that for?
I don't even know if he was that annoyed about it. I think he was just like, oh, this is a waste. What'd you pick that up for? You know?
Yep.
Because he didn't really do much. But this is also his memoir, so maybe he did go off his head.
Well,
but he wouldn't want to write that down.
To put in their memoir how they like screamed at their wife, wouldn't they?
Yeah. So Alexander just told Zayla to put it away. Like, he couldn't be arsed with it. Like it was nothing.
Yeah.
She revealed to him that she had taken this bone off the skeleton that they had seen that day.
Off the skeleton? Oh, what else would be?
Because remember I said earlier that the spine was intact?
Yep.
The bone that Zayla took was a sacrum bone, which comes from the base of the spine.
Oh. It's funny they knew specifically. Later
they did. They didn't know at this point.
She didn't just, I really want to take home a sacrum bone. That's my hope for the holiday.
No. I have a picture of a sacrum bone, if that's helpful.
Sure, I could see that. I never told Eilidh at the time, but after we moved into this house, the dog was out in the back garden, and there was some really weird, just like junk left all over the place. But the dog was playing something, and I got it off him and picked up a piece of bone that he was playing with.
Kieran!
He was just playing with his bone, and I just sort of went, nope, and then just yeeted it over the fence into the field.
Oh my god, what did it look like?
Kind of circular, kind of heart-shaped.
You better be joking.
No, it was, it looked like half of like a beef shin bone. Like the ones you get for dogs. Because it looks like the bone we've got him to chew before.
Well, luckily for you, I know the people who lived here before had dogs.
Yep.
So you are so lucky. What is divorce live on microphone? Jesus Christ.
Executive decision. Like, Eilidh doesn't know. She's having a hard time right now. She doesn't need to know about this.
Oh.
Yeet. Or I threw it in the bin. I can't remember.
That is a sacrum bone.
Anyway. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So she took that.
Oh. It looks kind of like a face.
No, it doesn't.
These two little eyes. It's like a big fairy face. It looks kind of like Groot.
Oh, it looks a bit like Groot. I could see that. But this thing, you have to think about what this means, because the spine was intact.
It means it probably didn't come away easily, necessarily.
She had to separate it from the rest of the spine. It wasn't on the floor. It wasn't tucked away somewhere that she kicked by accident. She had to separate it. I'm
imagining her yanking and it going like, tsh, what was that? Oh, I just bent down and my knee clicked.
That was nothing.
I kicked a stone. It fell down the... Shut up.
It's the worst.
I don't see how...
Well, to her, this is just a souvenir of a fun holiday, but she's like desecrated a grave.
Yeah.
She's taken a piece of this woman's body.
It's grim.
It's awful.
I wonder if that's also part of the empire. They're like, oh, it's not actually a person,
well,
you know?
I would believe it. It's
like,
a lower class of human, or just like, you know, mummies and things. Oh, they're not real. Like, it's too old to be real. It doesn't have the same impact as it should.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
You were talking about last week how when things are closer, they mean more. But the further they fade into history, the less emotional impact they have on you. I feel this is the same principle.
Well, it's because if you found a skeleton and found a body, they mean two very different things.
But yeah, she was not bothered.
She was just, geese it. I shall store it in my bodice until I am home.
So grim. In his memoir, Alexander said that he basically forgot about the bone.
Fair enough.
Afterwards, Zayla put it away, and it very much seems like out of sight, out of mind. He didn't give it much thought, which is why I think he wasn't really that bothered. So he's not really the good guy here, because he's not pushing for her to return it or anything.
No.
He's just not arsed.
He's just not as bad.
He just didn't take anything.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
That's the only difference here.
But they left Egypt and went back to their home in Learmonth Gardens in Edinburgh. If you know it, I don't.
I do not.
Only one source I read for this episode claimed to know which of the houses there they lived in, but the author said that, well, their words were, I intend to keep it quiet in respect for the current occupiers. So that's what I'm going to be doing. They just lived in that area. And given what happened next, it makes a lot of sense that the current occupiers wouldn't want the address out there, because inevitably people are going to turn up wanting to see the house.
Yep. Is this going to be similar to the poltergeist, the Socky poltergeist?
Just wait.
Okay. I can't wait anymore.
For this next part, I'm going to be referencing Alexander's memoir largely, because it's the only first-hand account for what happened next.
Did you have a physical copy, or did you find it online?
I didn't. I found a digital copy
Nice.
of the memoir. That was very, very helpful to me.
The memoir.
But just be aware that this is coming from his memoir. So we need to understand bias when we're looking at sources.
Yep.
It's important. After coming back from their big Egypt trip, Alexander and Zayla invited some friends round for a dinner party at their big house.
Yep.
And it was during this get-together that Zayla disappeared and then reappeared with the bone, which Alexander described as a somewhat grotesque relic, which I'd say is an understatement.
Well, yeah.
So he really didn't like it.
No, but if you'd taken that home, you would whip it out at a dinner party if you were telling people all about your trip.
Well, I think that's exactly the reason that she did it.
Oh, yeah.
To be able to tell people she had it.
Look at this. Tell the story about how you...
Not even look at this. Look what I have.
Yeah.
You know, the two are different. Apparently it went down well. Everyone loved it.
As long as you didn't drop it in the soup.
God. That's disgusting. Oh. So because she was going around showing it to everybody, Alexander went and found a case to put the bone in. So a glass case. So that it could sit on the dining room table and be seen by everyone.
Yep.
You know, no better centerpiece.
Well, that's just it. It's a conversation starter.
And a human bone.
Where in the t-shirt, ask me about my bone.
I don't think that's a good idea. Although you have a stag do coming up. Perfect t-shirt for a stag do.
Well, yeah, it's less inappropriate if she wears it than if he wears it.
True.
Anyway.
So dinner came to a close that night. Everyone had a lovely evening talking about this bone. Alexander and Zayla were saying goodbye to their guests at the front door.
Did they say, we'll see you tomorrow?
I hope not, because marrow is even worse than bones. Their guests were just heading off, like just leaving, when everyone heard a massive bang from inside the house. Something... Oh no, I just lied. They heard this massive bang outside with them. Something had crashed down to the ground 2 feet away from the group as they were leaving. A piece of the roof parapet.
Spooky.
It just missed them. And they were all horrified because they were all genuinely incredibly lucky. It landed so close to them, and if it had hit anyone, it would have killed them.
Oh, no.
So everyone got a hell of a scare.
Yeah, as you would.
Yeah, that would be really, really terrifying.
Big time.
And several of them couldn't help but look back at the bone sitting on the dining table. Because they'd all been laughing and joking about it all night, and then they nearly died.
Bit superstitious, perhaps. See, I feel for me it would take a few things before I even begun to consider there might be a link.
I can do that for you.
Well, yeah, which I feel there's going to be, but I didn't expect there'd be one thing, and then they'd be like, was that the bone?
I don't think it was said, but I think a lot of them were scared. I assume because they probably were talking about like the mummy's curse all night. It was a big thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right to not assume anything strange was happening at this point. It would just be a really weird coincidence.
Yeah, that's just like, whew, that was strange.
But no one was hurt and no one was killed, thankfully.
Well, that's good. That's just always good.
But this wasn't the end of the strange things happening at Learmonth Gardens. Not by a long shot. A few nights after this accident, one of the staff that worked in the house disturbed Alexander's sleep, which was unheard of. She ran up to Alexander and Zayla's room in the middle of the night to tell him that she was sure there was someone in the house. She was really scared someone had broken in. She had heard someone moving about in the drawing room, and she was sure there was an intruder come to rob them. But she didn't feel she could do anything, so she went to Alexander.
Fair.
And you know it's serious because she woke him up. He's her boss.
Well, yeah. Well, this is your job. Fetch the musket.
Oh no, I mean just like she would get in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
For disturbing him. So you know she's serious, that she's taken the risk to say there's someone here.
Yep.
But it was also in the drawing room that the bone sat in its case on the table. But Alexander got up and went to investigate, so he's taking it seriously too. And I'm kind of glad that it was him. I'm kind of glad that she went to him, because whenever stuff like this happens in our house, I like it when you go and check.
I am the
don't
checker.
like doing it.
Last time it was because some backpacks fell off a shelf in the cupboard.
Oh. But there was a horrible time before where something fell over in the loft.
Oh yeah, that was spooky.
And that was heavy, and it sounded like there was someone in the loft.
Yep.
And it was awful.
That was awful.
So yeah, I'm glad that he listened to her and didn't make her go and check.
No, you do it. I'm scared.
Because I hate it. But despite her being absolutely positive and really afraid, he checked out the house and no one was there.
Oh, shit.
Nothing was amiss. He couldn't see anything that would be responsible for the noise. Everything was fine.
I'm shocked. There was nothing there.
Well, Alexander went back to bed, slept pretty soundly, except for waking up in the morning and having that thought where you're not sure if you dreamt it, but he was sure he heard a loud crash in the night.
Ooh, that's always spooky.
He couldn't be sure. He thought he dreamt it, but he got up as normal. But when he saw Zayla for the first time that morning, she was livid with him. She was raging and started scolding him for being so careless when he had checked out the drawing room.
What? Why? Why?
Turns out that when Zayla had gotten up that morning and started going about her day, moving around the house, she saw that the table in the drawing room was lying on its side.
Oh, shit.
And the bone was on the floor along with its case. Everything was strewn about, and to her, it looked like Alexander had knocked into it in the dark. knocked everything over and then just left it there and gone back to bed.
Of course.
But he was sure that he didn't.
Oh, shit.
Because he didn't remember bashing into anything, and he certainly didn't remember knocking anything onto the floor.
I mean, to hit a table hard enough to knock it over, you'd have to be pretty sleepy to not notice that.
To not notice you did it.
Yeah.
I could understand it happening, but you would notice.
Yeah, I could fully imagine walking into it. We had a bookcase in our hall for a while that I walked square into one night on the way to the bathroom.
You did do that. It's very funny.
And I was at like waist height, so I was properly like splayed over the top, just like...
It's not there anymore.
For that reason.
He didn't remember doing it. He apologised to her regardless and assumed that he must have moved the table when he was checking the place out. And then he figured that he had put it, quote, unevenly against the wall, and the vibration of the traffic must have shaken it over.
That is some Kieran level of reaching to explain something.
Well, you know, he's not convinced about anything.
No.
He reckons he must have just put it back in a weird place and then it fell.
Yep.
So he apologised and took the rap.
Oh, sorry.
A couple weeks pass, and then both Alexander and Zayla heard someone on the stairs. At first, they put it down to the same staff member as before, the one who'd woken them up, and they referred to her as Nanny. They assumed she was coming back early from her errands she'd been out doing. But when Zayla went to check if everything was all right, because she was back very soon, nobody was there.
Spooky.
Nanny hadn't come back early, and no one else was in the building. But they had both heard, and had heard so well that they both remarked that something must be wrong, that she's come back so soon.
It's always spookier when it happens that way. When you hear something like, oh, that'll be this thing, X, Y, Z, and then nothing.
Well, I did it just the Sunday past. I told you.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
I was napping on the couch at Kieran's mum's house, and I was kind of dozing, and the dog was lying like underneath me, which was very cute. But I heard you walking down the hall towards the living room. I heard footsteps. And I immediately thought, oh, Kieran must be back from seeing his uncle. That's great. But then you didn't come in. And there was no more noise. And I know that I wasn't crazy, and I don't think I was dreaming, because the dog heard it too. And Odin got up and looked at the living room door for you. But you weren't home yet.
But I wasn't there.
So this is creepy to me.
Yep.
I don't like it.
It's pretty spooky.
After that, the couple started being woken up regularly throughout the night with strange noises that were now happening all through the house. Alexander said that they kept waking them up at different times and none of them could explain the noises.
They didn't blame Dem Bones.
Not yet. But I think it's interesting that the noises are happening at different times of the night. It's not the same time every night, which you could maybe attribute to someone who's going about their routine, or a train that goes by at the same time every night. That's not the case.
Yeah, something more random occurrences are definitely more compelling.
Yeah, it's happening at random times and you can't predict it. Whereas if there was a big train going past at 3 a.m. every night, you might feel the vibration without realising it's a train. But if it happened at the same time every night...
Yeah, or you've got a neighbour who does, like, works nights.
Yeah.
So they get up to go to work at, like, 2 a.m.
So you always hear a door bang.
Yeah, something like that.
But this was at different times.
Spooky.
After the night noises had started happening, Alexander's nephew came to visit them, who was called Alistair Black. All seemed well with his visit. They had a great time until they saw each other one morning during his stay. Here's what Alexander wrote. One morning, this is him talking about his nephew. One morning, he calmly announced that he had seen a funny dressed person going upstairs. He assumed he had gone to the lower lavatory the night before and had seen this person. He didn't seem to be the slightest bit scared about it, however, so I didn't say anything more about it, but decided to sit up one night to see if I could see anything.
Ooh. It's just like his curiosity is growing.
But see, I wonder if at this point even he's still a bit concerned that someone is breaking into the house.
Oh, that's true.
Because if all of these things are happening, and they're wealthy, remember?
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's like someone's mucking about, someone keeps coming in, I'm going to catch them.
Yeah, there's a physical intruder as opposed to...
Imagine, I know that you don't believe any of this.
I do not, no.
But imagine just for a moment that you had experienced these things. You don't believe that ghosts are real. So if all of these things are happening to you, the weird noises, the footsteps, I saw a weird guy in your house, I think you would go, shit, someone's in my house.
Yeah, I think I would probably go like, let's change the locks or something. Make sure we're locking the doors, get a security light, that kind of thing.
So I don't think this is just curiosity. I would believe that he, in his head, this is the answer and he's concerned.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because I think that's what you would do.
Yep. That's the thing, I'm trying to disprove it in my own head as we go. And I can't necessarily, but I still don't believe it. So I'm just sat like a lemon over here.
Must be tricky. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be brave enough to stay up all night waiting for a ghost or an intruder. I'm not doing that. You can stay awake, and me and the dog will be in bed together. We'll just chill out and keep each other safe.
Yeah. Well, we've had it before where there's been noises outside, and you're like, should we go and check? And I'm saying, no. Should we go outside and see it? No. No, I'm not. We're going out there in the dark at 3 a.m. Well, that's not happening. The door's locked. It's fine.
I wonder if sometimes, because we do get quite a lot of weird noises outside, but there are a lot of pheasants. And pheasants are quite big.
They are.
So I wonder if it's just pheasants in the garden just wrecking shit.
Knocking into things. Could be.
But Alexander was braver than me. He did stay up all night one night, waiting for someone to break into his home.
Did he find anybody?
Well, I'll get there.
Okay.
His reason for doing this that he gives in the book was that he knew where a lot of valuables were, and he knew that they had some valuable stuff in the drawing room that people might be targeting. He talks about snuff boxes.
Oh, yeah.
So, in his mind, he thinks the reason that there's all this noise in the drawing room particularly is that someone is trying to break in and steal these snuff boxes, which would sell for a lot of money.
Yeah, I think that seems fair.
So he says, having made quite sure that the drawing room windows were all locked, I locked the door to the drawing room, putting the key into my pocket. For hours, I watched from the balcony outside our bedroom, feeling rather foolish doing so. So he's looking down at the drawing room.
Oh, okay. So he's upstairs out on the balcony, looking down into into the window or at that room.
I'm assuming so, or maybe the front door.
Yep.
To see if someone's breaking in.
Yeah.
He seems determined, so he did wait up all night for these robbers, but everything was quiet. He didn't see or hear anything. So he went to bed.
Uh-huh.
But later that night, Zayla woke him up.
Oh, shit.
She was terrified and she was yelling at him that someone was in the house downstairs. She was sure. And I can imagine if you're in that kind of state, you're positive.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't do it lightly.
No. And I can imagine his frustration at this point because he stayed up a good portion of the night trying to catch someone, and he had fallen asleep and now there's someone in the house and he was none the wiser.
Yeah, that wouldn't feel good.
So he shot out of bed and got a gun and went downstairs.
Going to snuff out the intruders.
Yeah, he was not messing about. But when he made it to the lower floor, the only person he met was Nanny, who must have gotten a hell of a fright because he's roaming around in the dark with a gun.
And stories would have me believe that's a common, reason why servants died. Mad lords roaming around naked with guns. I assume that happened all the time.
Hey, we had an episode about that.
Exactly. So,
we talked about exactly that.
Archibald Kinross.
Kinloch.
I'm still doing that.
You're close, though. It's because Kinross is a place.
Yeah.
Now, I became aware in my research when we got to this point that Nanny has appeared or had something to do with lots of things that have happened so far.
Ooh, that's true. Is she trying to steal a snuff box?
I don't know, but I was suspicious at this point as I was going through the story because it kept coming up as, oh, well, she couldn't have been there, or she showed up, or she said, and I was a bit like, eh.
Ah, interesting.
But what Alexander discovered next, after he ran into Nanny, couldn't have been her fault.
Okay, he didn't discover her with 2 phantom bullet holes in her, did she?
No.
Did he? Okay.
No. This is what changed my mind, because there's not any way really she could have done anything. So he's searching the house, and he wanted to check the drawing room to see if it had been targeted like he thought for the snuff boxes. So he shouted up to Zayla to get the key out of his pocket, because he had locked it earlier that night.
Yes.
And then gone to bed, but the key was still in his pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way Nanny could have gotten the key, because it was still up there.
Yep.
When Alexander and Zayla opened up the drawing room door, they were horrified.
Ooh.
No one had had any way of getting into that room after Alexander shut it. Everything, the windows were locked, everything. But when they opened the door, Alexander said, it looked as if a battle royale had taken place there. Chairs were upset, books flung about, and there in the middle of the chaos was that damn bone, looking as harmless and more like a biscuit than ever. The windows were still locked.
Ooh.
Don't like that.
Don't like that.
Don't like that.
He's got a what? He's got a knack for narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So he does. Because this is playing out very much like a movie or something, isn't it?
That damn bone.
Yep. Damn bone.
Well, yeah, the place was in disarray. Everything was upset and tossed around the room, but the bone was sitting in the middle of it all, completely undisturbed in a glass case.
Oh, shit.
And it's at this point in the memoir that he kind of realizes that something strange might be happening here. Mm-hmm. Because there's no way a person could have done it, because they couldn't get in.
Yes. So wait a second. It's the bone is the common factor.
Yeah. But that's where his mind changes.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't think that way before, according to his account.
Yep.
Creepy.
Very creepy. Do you think he went up to Zayla and was like, I have a bone to pick with you?
I kind of hope so.
And then confronted her as to why she
picked
up a bone.
Given the way that the bone came into their possession, I'm kind of fair. You should be haunted for that. You stole part of someone's spine.
Yeah.
You're going to get haunted. Mm-hmm. They are totally... This woman whose spine you stole is totally valid in haunting you.
Yep. It's just valid.
In my opinion.
I quite agree. I'm like, yeah.
That you had this coming. Literally.
Yep. If hauntings were real, that is a perfectly good reason for it to happen. Totally fair. And yeah. Haunting. Undo the thing you did.
Or just suffer for it.
Or, well, that's just it.
You did this really stupid, awful thing, so now I'm going to haunt you. I'm going to break your shit. And I know it's expensive.
I'm going to stamp on your snuff boxes.
Yeah. 100%.
Mm-hmm. Because it's not going to be very easy for them to put the bone back.
Well, they'll have to admit that they have it.
Well, that as well. I just meant getting back to Egypt and trying to find their way back to that one...
Well, if they didn't want to admit it, they could send it.
Post it, that's true, yeah.
They could afford that.
Yep, didn't think of that.
And not the same precautions and preservation happened back in the 30s. Things were advanced, so I could well imagine them just shipping this bone in a wooden box.
Didn't think of that.
But they would have to admit to a point that they took it.
We told this story on Patreon at one point, I can't remember if we told it on the podcast, that we were in Hawaii once up an old volcano, and we got told not to take any stones from it, because if you do, you'll receive bad luck and curse and all that good stuff.
I think it was Haleakala.
Yeah, Haleakala.
Big volcano.
Yeah. Very cool. We went up there for a sunrise tour excursion thing. But we got told, don't pick up any of the volcanic stones and take them home, or you'll have bad luck. And I think I audibly laughed. So, because then the guy looked at me and went, you laughed. I'm like, oh, sorry, I did laugh, didn't I? But then he said they get them posted back all the time. It was hundreds of stones a year get posted back to Hawaii of people who've taken one home, got loads of bad luck, and just were like, nope, posted it back again. I didn't take one.
I think it's 100% true.
Mm-hmm. I didn't. I just didn't want to take a stone home.
I don't think it's ghostly either. I think it's just part of the natural world. This doesn't belong to you. You shouldn't have taken it. Put it back.
Put it back. Yeah. Reminiscent of that.
We cycled down that volcano, and it's the steepest.
It's 26 miles downhill. It's the fastest decline of a marathon in the world. Or
Yeah, and the bikes that we were on were too tall for me.
Yeah.
So I couldn't really reach the pedals properly, and my brakes didn't work, and I was just shaking and in bits about halfway down. And then I spent the rest of the time in the front of the minibus,
Yep.
down to the bottom. And I got to chat with the woman who was driving, and we had the best time.
You were not in a good way.
Before that, no, but after being in the minibus with her, I felt great.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I couldn't work the pedals. I'm very short. Couldn't reach them.
You just
The
had
brakes didn't work.
You're basically just having a panic attack down this slope.
Yeah. But I'm glad that I eventually just said, can I go on the bus? Because we had a great chat. She was such a nice person.
Yep.
She was telling me all about her kids. She either had 5 or 7 kids.
I remember.
It was great.
Good times.
Anyway,
What's
what's interesting at this point in the memoir is that Alexander uses the term poltergeist.
Oh, does he?
Yes, and this is interesting because there's a lot of people studying the paranormal as a field of scientific research in the 30s and studying poltergeists in the 30s. There was a huge craze of poltergeists then. And I found out about this story reading a book called The Haunting of Alma Fielding by Kate Summerscale. And she's... that whole book is about a woman who was supposedly terrorised by a poltergeist and then worked with paranormal researchers in the 30s.
Interesting.
So he's familiar with this term because it's in the public lexicon by this point, which I thought was interesting.
I think that's an interesting point in my camp of there not being something that it's outside media have influenced his opinion of what's going on.
Well, there's that, and we're going to talk more about curses later.
Okay.
That people were very aware of Egyptian curses as well.
Well, I'm curious where they started. Where does that come from? We're
We're going to talk about it. After the drawing room was trashed, Zayla came up with a plan of action. She decided to call a local soothsayer, which I'm taking to be like a medium or a psychic.
I think so.
What would you have done at this point?
Just said, see you later.
You're going to get divorced. It's a bit drastic.
Yeah. I don't really know because I don't believe him that this actually happened. I think he's trying to sell his memoir. So he's saying things were much worse than they were. But assuming this was actually happening, I think I'd be working at getting the bone back. I think that would be my go-to.
Fair.
Back to the pharaohs, yep.
Well, Alexander didn't rate this soothsayer at all. He was not impressed. He said that she, quote, really said practically nothing, except that her fee was £1 and was of no help.
Ah, yes, a man after my own heart. Starting to like this Alexander guy. He knows what's up.
So he didn't think that she was worth the money that they spent bringing her in.
Oh, wow, what a strange opinion about mediums. Who else would think like that?
I don't know who else would think that. Kieran.
Strange.
However, after the soothsayer came to visit the house, Alexander reports that nothing happened for several weeks. So, did she actually do what they paid her for?
Perhaps money well spent.
If nothing happened for a good amount of time.
Yeah, he could pay just £1 every few weeks just to have her come.
Well, it seems like what he should have done, because after that several weeks, the banging noises started again. And now they were noticing that the noise always came from the drawing room. It wasn't happening all over the house. It wasn't all over the place. It was only in the room that had the bone in it.
Ooh, well, see, that's when I'd start moving the bone to see if the noises followed it.
Well, it's interesting that you would say that, Kieran.
Oh. I mean, Alexander just vibing.
Which is funny to me because you're like, well, I don't believe this happened because he's just trying to sell his memoir. But all the things that he's been doing, you're like, I would do that. Oh, would you, Kieran? Would you really? That's so interesting.
I'm being got by my own logic.
So interesting.
Totally unrelated, but Soothsayer is an amazing song by Buckethead. Some fantastic guitar
There you
work.
go. Recommendation for you. If you're sick of this episode, you can go do that.
Oh, no, or if you like long things, it's like a 9-minute long song. So
So that's just what we do then.
yep.
So by this point, the banging is happening a lot through the night, and it's always from the drawing room, and frustration's building with the two of them. They're sick of it. So Zayla comes up with another plan. She wonders what would happen if they move all the furniture out of the drawing room completely, with the exception of the heavy chairs that were in there, which just seemed like they couldn't really move, including the bone in its case. So move it out of the drawing room completely to see what's moving around in there.
I like it.
Because if there's banging noises, I could see, well, maybe something's hitting against a wall, maybe something's wobbling. We'll move everything out of the room and see what happens.
Yeah.
So they moved all of the furniture and the bone in its case into one of the sitting rooms, which Alexander calls his sitting room.
This is a big house.
I know. He has his own living room. But that's where all the furniture was moved.
I want my own sitting room.
You have a desk.
And?
That's it.
I've got a nuke.
Yeah, you're good.
That's right.
Over the course of a week, Alexander's sitting room was absolutely trashed.
Oh, shit.
Just like the drawing room had been when the bone was in there. During this week, while all the furniture and the bone wasn't in there, the drawing room was untouched and silent. Confirming to Zayla and Alexander that all of this seemed to be centred around this damn bone that Zayla had taken from the tomb.
Well, I like their methodology.
See, they did the thing.
They did the thing. They have confirmed.
Process of elimination.
Yep.
So, well, it's not the room.
Therefore, ghost.
Yeah.
That's just
A to B.
A to B.
That's science, Kieran. Look it up.
I never really considered that if you had like a ghost or a poltergeist who was banging things, if you had no fear about it because it couldn't harm you, it would just be objectively really annoying. Because you wouldn't be able to sleep because there's just all these really annoying noises happening all the time.
Well, you're an incredibly light sleeper.
Yeah, I would be up all night.
If the dog turns over in his bed sometimes, you wake up.
I woke up this morning because he was dreaming and I could hear him doing little yelps.
Odin does dream quite vocally, and he like twitches his little legs as he runs.
I woke up to him going, yip, yip, yip.
Well, I mean, usually I'm up later than you. If I'm up later reading and you've fallen asleep beside me, I can just roll over to put my book down and turn the light off and you're wide awake.
Yeah, I wake up to the noise of you putting your bookmark in your book.
So my point being, this...
I would be done for.
Especially if you don't believe in ghosts and shit. This is just going to piss you off.
Yep.
I have to move house. And you have to move without me, because I've said I'm not moving. This is my house. I'm never moving again.
You stay here with your ghosts and your garden bones.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's better than packing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can do the podcast over Skype, so it should be fine.
Sweet. By this point, much like yourself, Alexander is absolutely sick of this shit. He's tired of the disruption. He's tired of all this weird stuff going on he can't explain. And when he saw the state of the sitting room, which assumedly had also had all of his stuff in it.
Oh, well, that's true if it's his sitting room.
He told Zayla he was going to take the bone and burn it.
Oh, interesting. So
let's just get rid of it.
Get rid. Can you burn bone?
You can at very, very high temperatures.
Yeah. I mean, I like his energy.
He just wants rid of it.
Yep.
He wants the whole thing to be done.
Still doesn't want to do the right thing, but, you know.
But, I mean, to him and to Zayla, I'm assuming it's not that big a deal.
No, they've not done the wrong thing. They've just done a thing.
It's not terribly wrong that they took it. It's just inconvenient because it's causing all these problems.
Yep.
So it's not a moral thing.
No.
You have to remember the time that we're in and their attitude. I'm sure not everybody thought that way.
No.
But
at most it was just a little bit naughty.
Yeah, the morality of the thing doesn't seem to be the issue.
Nope.
But when he suggested burning this bone, because he was sick of its shit, Zayla didn't agree. She absolutely didn't agree. And when he made the suggestion, she went off on Alexander.
Well, don't trust her. She stole it in the first place.
Maybe she's possessed.
Yeah.
Well, she was furious with him just at the suggestion of him destroying the bone. And she got so angry that she left the house that night. And then he went off to a club that he was a member of. They had to take some space from each other. They had a huge row.
Oh, dang. What, do we know why she was so against it?
Not really. He doesn't give much explanation. She just really didn't want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And my thinking is she's probably told all of these people that she has this thing.
Yeah.
And she won't have it anymore.
It'll be the end of her, like, power of having it.
But that's the
Her
whole
social-
problem, is that to her, it's this thing. I have this thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking not trust her, because he didn't want to go to the tomb, and she did. Then they went there, and then she took something. And now she's taking it home, and now she doesn't want to get rid of it. So he must be at his wit's end.
It's not a great track record, eh?
No.
So Alexander, like I said, he had gone off to this club, and it's like a members only thing, not a nightclub.
No.
And she had disappeared for the night as well. And when he got there, he knew a lot. What?
Maybe it was the same club that was in one of the other episodes.
The Edinburgh Cape Club?
Yes.
I don't think so.
That's what I was going to bring it up.
So she's off and he's off. And when he gets to this club, he has several of his friends there that he sees quite often. And he starts ranting at them about what's been happening at home.
Yeah.
And about this fucking bone, which he says, quote, caused much laughter and was not believed, unquote.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't
So
it?
he's telling all of his lad friends about all of these problems and nobody believes him and they just laugh at him.
Checks out.
It sounds correct.
Yep.
It sounds accurate. However, one of Alexander's friends didn't react like the others. He took it much more seriously than anyone else, including Alexander had done. Because when everyone was laughing at him about it, he sort of joined in and started laughing about how ridiculous it was too and just how fed up he was. But this friend took it a lot more seriously than he did. So much so that he managed to get Alexander privately and spoke to him about the whole thing. And whatever he said seemed to have a really big impression on Alexander, because he left the club that night convinced again that he had to destroy this bone and he wasn't joking anymore.
Ooh.
So something was said that changed his mind.
But he didn't record what was said.
Nope.
Convenient.
But his mind was changed.
Yes.
It wasn't just a joke and like, oh, she'll get over it. And, you know, the usual.
And when it's 30s, just, women.
Yeah, you know. You know.
I know.
But no, he, even knowing how angry Zayla would be, he was convinced he had to destroy this bone.
So, what does he do? How does he go for it? Does he burn it? Does he have a big fire?
Before he could even get there, he got home that night and the sitting room was trashed again.
Oh, that'd be really annoying.
Although, with Zayla being so angry, maybe she did it.
Well,
on that occasion. Valid.
I'm just waiting for this bone to, like, he wakes up and it's in his mouth or something and just like trying to choke him.
He wrote, "This was much earlier than usual, but the damage was more severe than usual, as this time it was obvious that the table upon which the bone lay had been subjected to what one might say was severe pressure, for one of the legs was cracked. I just couldn't believe my eyes." So usually this stuff was happening in the middle of the night, but this was happening much earlier in the evening.
Interesting.
So different again. And it seems like it's escalating.
It is. It's ramping up for sure.
It's damaging big pieces of furniture.
Yep. Narratively, we're getting towards some sort of climax.
Really? You think so?
I think so.
By this point, from what I could gather, it's been at least a couple months since they came back from Egypt. So it's been several weeks of this. And if all of this is really happening, you have to assume that their nerves are kind of frayed and tensions are just a bit high.
Yeah.
The day after Zayla had exploded at Alexander and he went to the pub and came home to it trashed,
Yep.
a reporter arrived at the Setons' home.
Oh, shit. Now, I can't imagine he wants this going public.
Absolutely not. This isn't what Alexander wanted at all.
No.
In his memoir, he explains that the reporter came to Alexander with the story of the haunting already. But he had no idea how the press found out about it.
Well, it's got to be one of the boys at the club, doesn't it?
Or Zayla.
Or Zayla. Or Nanny.
Maybe.
Lots of options.
Alexander told the reporter that it was a cock and bull story and also said that it was utter tripe and sent him away. He wanted nothing to do with it and wouldn't confirm, wouldn't say anything.
Well, you know.
Yeah. So he wasn't here for the press at all. But before he left, the reporter went further because the reporter didn't just want comment or confirmation. He wanted the bone.
Oh, because he would want the fame and stuff. If he could have it at his house, then his house is getting haunted.
Yeah, the reporter asked if he could take the bone that seemed to be causing all of these problems for a week so he could see it for himself.
Yeah.
And Alexander was all too happy. He was like, yeah, take it. I don't give a crap. Take it, write about it all you want, I don't care.
Very nice, very nice. My week getting boned.
It's a different story for a different publication. So the reporter took it. He took this haunted, creepy bone.
Yep.
For a whole week, but nothing happened.
Well, I'm leaning back towards it being Nanny who's causing shit.
It was completely uneventful the whole time he had it.
Well, that'd be disappointing, wouldn't it?
But my suspicion was far more on Zayla, because there's a lot of fame to be had in having taken a haunted bone and being haunted by it and being at the centre of it all.
That's true.
Going to the papers. Being talked about. That was my suspicion.
And if social status is important to you and your current legacy is that you got a fine once, you're wanting something a bit spicier.
Well, she's a
aren't you?
society lady.
Yep.
So it makes sense to me.
Okay.
To be part of this Egyptian craze, and it's happening to you and your name's in the paper.
Yep.
No, we can't destroy the bone. I'm really angry at you for it because we need it.
I think he's being played like a fiddle.
That was my suspicion.
Yeah. I could get on board with that.
After this, Alexander talks about the sheer misery he felt when the story did hit the papers. Because it became a huge deal. It really took off.
I would feel exactly the same.
Lots of other reporters started pestering Alexander and Zayla for details, like turning up at their home. They just didn't give them any peace, which is part of the reason why I'm quite glad the address specifically has kind of been put to bed.
Yeah.
Because that's not nice.
That's not nice. There's no need for that to be out.
But it's interesting thinking about this compared to the Socky poltergeist story that we talked about, because it's very similar.
It is very similar.
It happened there too, that the details started coming out and then they started getting hounded by the press.
They don't even have a spooky podcast to promote at the same time. So, if it ever leaks out that our house is haunted, you'll know why.
Our house is not haunted. I don't want it to be. Therefore, it's not. I have that kind of power.
Don't have to tell me twice.
It's not happening.
I was happy I'm allowed to be in this house.
Several weeks after the reporter had borrowed the haunted bone and returned it, there was more crashing and more banging in the night. It was happening again. Classic haunted house behaviour at this point.
It's pretty textbook. I'm just imagining how annoyed I would be if this was all happening in our house to us, and I was trying to sort it out and figure it out and see what was going on. And then it came to light that you were going downstairs, trashing the place, and then coming up to me being like, what did you do? Did you knock over the table? And then just going off at me about it. I would be so pissed. I don't know if that's where this is going, but just that thought.
Well, actually the opposite, because the noises and the crashing started happening when both Alexander and Zayla were out. Neither of them were home. And Nanny was at home by herself.
Well, I bet she wishes she has a different job.
Which is why, I'm not inclined to believe that she had anything to do with it, because there's so much more work.
Nanny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If everything's getting trashed, she's the one who has to clean it up.
I'm making my own work. Like the fireman arsonist.
I wouldn't want to do that.
No.
But she reported at around 6 p.m. one night there was lots of loud crashes from the drawing room. And it was so bad that she was too scared to open the door to see what happened. She didn't want to go in.
Crazy.
I don't blame her at all.
No.
She's there by herself.
Yeah, taking it on face value, absolutely fair. Totally valid reaction. I'm amazed she still works there. I wasn't just nope, I'm going to find a different house to work in.
Right, so I'm not inclined to believe it's her. But weird that it happens when both Alexander and Zayla are out of the house. When Alexander got home that night, he went into the drawing room because Nanny had said she was too scared. He went in and it was really bizarre because most of the furniture in the drawing room was untouched. Nothing was out of place except the table that the bone had been on. The table itself was completely smashed. The glass case that had been holding the bone was smashed. And the bone itself was broken into 5 pieces.
Ooh. That's a spooky little detail.
So a priceless piece of archaeology. Smashed.
Smashed.
Now, for some reason, it seems a bit sus to me. I don't know if he was just so frustrated that he wanted to try and get something out of all this. Alexander called a reporter about what happened with the bone. And even invited a cameraman to come and take photos of everything after this display had happened.
Okay.
A big change of heart.
Yeah.
Considering that he hated that the reporters were coming round.
Unless that was just part of the act.
Maybe, or just he's fed up of not getting anything for all of this.
Yeah.
Frustration.
Hassle.
And yeah, so it's, well, I might as well get paid. Don't know.
Might as well cash in on it.
Yes. But Alexander says this at this point in his memoir, and let me know what you think, because this has Black Lady of Lark Hall vibes to me.
Okay.
So I'll read it to you. I gave the bone to the reporter who had covered the story. It was returned to me, however, because apparently he became seriously ill. Same old trouble, or was it? My suggestion that there was a connection with this fact and the fact that the previous reporter had had a car accident was met with a great deal of ridicule, however, so we decided to forget the whole thing and prayed for peace.
I'm not getting Lark Hall vibes. I can't remember the similarity.
People who were visiting Lark Hall and visiting the pub, there was the guy who was getting attacked, and there was car accidents after they filmed there.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember if it was a beam or something fell down in a pub. Yep,
it was the bit above the door, the stone,
lintel.
The lintel, yeah.
That fell on someone.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure after they were filming there, a member of the crew was in a car accident and died.
You are right enough. I was thinking, confusing that with something else. Okay, yeah.
So he's given the bone to someone else and they were in a car accident, and then to someone else and they've become really ill.
Interesting.
Almost as if the bone was cursed.
Oh. I'm jumping ahead again, but I want to know where this bone ends up. Where is it now? Where is it today? I want to know.
On the lamb.
It grew tiny legs and trotted off.
Sick of this shit. I mentioned curses relating to ancient Egypt earlier when I was talking about Howard Carter and Tutankhamun. And this was a well-known phenomenon in Alexander and Zela's time. They would have heard a lot about the supposed mummy's curse. And the thought was definitely that they had brought home a mummy's curse of their own with this bone.
Even though it was a tomb that was pre-mummy era.
Yes. When several of the mummies' tombs were discovered in and around the pyramids, many of them were inscribed with warnings and threats, supposedly to deter grave robbers and those who would disturb the mummy's eternal rest.
Yep. Because if you wait long enough, it stops being grave robbing and starts becoming archaeology.
Yes. Maybe it's like the copyrights, like 75 years.
Yep.
The pharaohs and other important ancient Egyptians were buried with lots of treasures and wealth, like we said, which would make them a pretty juicy target. And some of the curses said things like, any ruler who shall do evil or wickedness to this coffin, may his heir not inherit. As for all men who shall enter this, my tomb, impure, there will be judgment. An end shall be made for him. I shall seize his neck like a bird. I shall cast the fear of myself into him.
Ooh, spooky.
And cursed be those who disturb the rest of a pharaoh. They that shall break the seal of this tomb shall meet death by a disease that no doctor can diagnose.
Ooh.
All good stuff.
All the stuff you'd expect, really.
So you can see why the legend of a mummy's curse endured with the explosion of Egyptomania and made its way into the mainstream.
Well, I'm glad for once it came from the source. It didn't get attributed to the source, like after the fact. You know, so there were warnings on the tomb. It wasn't people being like, "Oh, I bet it's cursed," because like it has to be.
Well, some of the tombs had curse or what have been deemed as curses.
They had warnings,
and things to keep people away. But it has kind of morphed into something else over time. The idea of the mummy's curse. There were lots of tombs and discoveries that were linked with what seemed to be coincidental accidents. Which helped the flourishing of the mummy's curse. So things like floods, fires, unexpected deaths, and strange goings on. If things like that happened, it was always the mummy's curse.
Absolutely.
even though the warnings on the tombs themselves, you know, like I read to you, they're kind of vague.
Yeah. They're just general beware.
Yeah, or like stay away.
Yep.
It's not yours.
This isn't yours. Put it down. Put it down.
People were especially intrigued and frightened after Howard Carter and his team opened Tutankhamun's tomb. Because remember I said we were coming back to this.
You did?
Because the story went that several of the people involved in the excavation died soon afterwards. That was the story. The curse of Tutankhamun. One of the legends surrounding the curse told how Howard Carter's canary was eaten by a cobra.
Interesting.
A messenger who went to his house saw the cobra in the bird's cage and heard a strange, almost human cry. And this was seen as significant because the cobra was considered a symbol of the Egyptian monarchs because they have the cobra on the headdress.
Ah, I see.
It was worn to strike enemies. Apparently that was the significance of it.
Got ya.
So the cobra eating Carter's canary was seen as an evil omen.
Grim.
Mm-hmm.
It's typically not what canaries are supposed to warn you of.
No.
Oh yeah, that's my cobra canary.
It got eaten.
Means we should probably leave.
Now, despite all the hype and the fear that surrounds it, that Alexander and Zayla would have known at the time, it doesn't seem like Carter's team were struck down by a curse. The financial backer of the excavation, George Herbert, who was the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, died 4 months after the tomb was opened, seemingly from an infected mosquito bite.
Ooh.
So not a curse.
No.
But a legend said that all the lights in his house, or all the lights in Cairo, went out the moment he died.
Interesting.
So people have attributed his death to the tomb.
Yeah.
And the curse.
To me, they're just coincidences. But I would always think that way.
Well, I read in one article that for everyone who went into the tomb, it was safer for them inside than out. Because there were so many dangerous things. Well,
that's just it. Like people died here. I'm like, yeah, because they were in the middle of a desert, kind of in the middle of nowhere, doing something dangerous, like excavating is not a safe thing to do in the 30s.
I think the next related death to King Tut happened the year after the discovery of the tomb, when one of the men who'd gone in died of a fever.
Oh. Probably just had malaria.
Well, yeah. And Carter himself didn't die until 1939. But lots of people attribute his death to the mummy's curse, even though it was 17 years later.
Well, that's what I said. Like, oh, he's dead today.
So you can see how it's kind of morphed.
Yeah.
There were other deaths related to Tutankhamun, but I won't get too into it. There's a theory that the release of fungi or bacteria caused the deaths. This is more of a modern theory, that when they opened up the tomb, there was something in there that was ancient. People breathed it in and it killed them.
Seems fair. I would believe that.
And I read that some of the mummies themselves and some of the tomb walls did have a type of mould that was thought to cause issues, but that doesn't seem to be the truth. Like, some people say that that's what it is, and some people say it's not.
Maybe. Hard to say. Did anybody get crushed under a sarcophagus? That would be quite significant.
Not as far as I know. But everyone was talking about curses related to ancient Egypt. You will not believe what I came across in my research about the curse of Tutankhamun.
Hit me.
By the way, we're going to have to talk about it more in the extra episode, or the blether over on Patreon, or maybe an extra episode, because this is fucking wild.
Okay.
Richard Bethel was considered a victim of Tutankhamun's curse. He was Carnarvon's secretary, so the guy who funded the excavation, who also died.
Yep.
Bethel is his secretary. He was found dead in London, and it was decided that his death was suspicious. It seemed like there was foul play. Some people put it down to the curse, but they think Aleister Crowley did it.
What? That's a right turn. Why?
Because of the link to ancient Egypt. If you remember, we talked a lot about his religion and what he believed in. The rumour is it has something to do with that.
That's so unexpected. I have no thoughts. Well, you can leave that with me and we can talk about that. Crowley. Right, well, that would be a turn up for the books. Mm-hmm. Especially because Crowley was a lot of things, but he doesn't strike me as a murderer.
Well, I can get into the theory in the Blether, because we don't have time here.
We have a lot to get through still.
But I came across that.
Well...
We should get back to Alexander and Zayla, and what they are now suspecting is an Egyptian curse.
Yes.
It's now Boxing Day, I'm assuming in 1936, the same year they visited Egypt. Although all the sources I found were quite sparse on dates and timelines. Alexander and Zayla invited round some friends for Boxing Day that evening.
For a night of spooking and feasting.
Well, they decided they were going to gather for drinks in the drawing room with the bone. Again.
Just to see if they can get fucked up.
They were having a great time, having a really good evening, but Alexander was really annoyed at Zayla because she had insisted on having the bone fully on display for everyone to see. And he hadn't wanted it. He didn't want anything to do with it, but she was insistent that it had to be front and centre.
This is another tick in the column that it's her.
Well, she's very proud to have this thing in her home and to show it off. She wanted everyone to know they had it.
Yep.
So that's why I'm suspicious.
I'm also suspicious.
Now, by this point, I don't know if it was this evening or not, or if it was before, but she had asked a friend who was a doctor to fix the bone. Because remember, it's split into 5 pieces.
Okay, yeah.
Because she wanted to display it again. She wanted it fixed. So it's not in 5 pieces anymore. And he was the one who explained that this was a sacrum bone.
Ah.
Because he understood anatomy.
Yep.
Like he could explain where it came from.
I wonder how that conversation went. Look, I have a bone that's broken. You have a broken bone? No. I have a bone that's broken that I need you to fix. Could you do that? Just yes. No questions asked. Like, is it like one of the skeletons for in medical research?
No.
It's just a bone of a girl that was in a tomb.
It's more recreational.
It's a sort of hobby bone.
I'm going for ancient Egypt chic in the house. So everyone's enjoying their drinks, having a great time, enjoying the festive season in the drawing room with this nasty, nasty bone.
Yep.
When all of a sudden, the table, the case, and the bone all flew across the room and smashed into a wall.
I'm always sceptical when stuff flies across the room.
In front of everyone.
If it's true, that's a sight to see.
Apparently, one of the maids and one of the guests passed out. They couldn't handle it. And all of their guests went fucking mental.
Well, as you would.
Yeah. Alexander tried to keep everyone calm and move them into another room in the house to sort of keep the party going. But as everyone was leaving, everyone gave the bone a really wide berth. Like, no one wanted anything to do with it. No one touched it. Nothing. They didn't want anything to do with this thing.
Very valid. A very valid reaction.
Unfortunately for Alexander, lots of people had been at the Boxing Day do. So after the fact, everyone was talking about it.
Yeah.
They'd all seen it happen, and the story spread like wildfire after this party.
As it would. As it would. Growing arms and legs and getting more and more so.
Yes, and this was when the story of the Setons and their mummy curse went international.
Oh.
Because American newspapers published the story of the stolen bone and the haunted Baronet from Scotland. And before they knew it, Alexander and Zayla were receiving hundreds, if not thousands, of letters from people.
Saying what, I wonder? Oh, I read about your bone. Can I come see it? Or
it was like an old-fashioned comments section.
Well, that's
really.
true, eh?
But do you want to know the name of one of the people who wrote to the Setons?
Somebody famous. Somebody in the 30s. Andrew Carnegie.
No. Howard Carter.
Oh, shit. That would be a much better guess.
Yeah, I did kind of lead you into it.
Yeah, I just thought it'd be someone famous. Well,
He was famous.
Well, I didn't see Aleister Crowley coming, so
Yeah, that's insane.
you know.
Yeah, Howard Carter wrote to them.
Well, do we know what he said?
Well, Alexander wrote about receiving the letter in his memoir.
Yep.
But in the letter, Carter had asked him not to reveal to anyone what he had written. So all Alexander said about it was this. He assured me that things quite inexplicable like this could happen, indeed had happened, and will go on happening.
It's a bit vague.
Well, my guess is that he spoke to Alexander about having stolen artifacts in his home, and he didn't want it spread.
And that does check out. Yeah, that's fair.
But then I also don't know why he would admit to having artifacts in his home with someone he didn't really know. That seems like a bit of a risk for his reputation.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice if he's experienced similar things and doesn't want to talk about them. It would be nice having somebody else in the same position.
Mm-hmm.
But, bit strange.
But yeah, he didn't want the contents of the letter shared. But he wrote to the couple.
Well, there you go.
After what happened on Boxing Day, that was the worst thing that had happened so far. Alexander invited one of his uncles to the house to exorcise it and to try and stop all the things that were happening there. I believe he was a minister of some type. Alexander did this and had this arranged for when Zayla wasn't home. She had no idea what was happening.
Cheeky.
Which implies that she didn't want any kind of intervention.
Yeah, she's quite happy having this ongoing.
Mm-hmm. But this was an official exorcism. Alexander says that his uncle had to get permission from the church to do it.
Oh, well.
So I think the Catholic Church, maybe more churches, but the Catholic Church, some ministers are trained in exorcism.
Yep.
That is a rite that they perform, but he had to get permission to do it.
Well, does it work?
Well, he exorcised the house and he blessed the bone. And then Alexander burned it.
Oh, shit.
Just like he threatened he would.
He didn't throw it into like a volcano.
No.
One Ring style.
Not in Edinburgh.
Okay.
He destroyed it when Zayla was out.
Oh.
After the house was blessed and everything.
She is going to be pissed.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't blame him because she caused all of this and he's suffering from it.
It just seems like he'd had enough.
Yeah.
He'd absolutely had enough. Which is what makes me question whether he was in on it.
Uh-huh.
Because he seems to have been genuinely done.
Yep.
And not enjoying it. And kind of acting out of frustration.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
Don't know. Crazy though.
Yeah.
So she comes back.
Well, all Alexander says in his memoir about Zayla finding out what he'd done is this. The strange thing is that after this, we had peace in the house. Although Zayla could not forgive me for destroying the bone, and it didn't help our already rocky marriage at all.
Well, it wouldn't, would it? Ugh.
They seem like very different people.
Yeah.
Because he didn't really want to talk about it. He hated the whole thing. And from what he's written, so it's obviously going to be biased.
Yep.
Zayla was very keen on everyone seeing it and showing off the bone all the time. There seems to have been a big point of contention between them, at the very least.
Well, and the fact he even thought to do it without telling her, I'm like, well, if you guys were really like solid, you would chat about it and come to some sort of agreement, as opposed to just having a shouting match and not talking about it.
And this was a thought-out plan, because it had to be scheduled in advance.
Yeah, absolutely.
He had this plan to do this and made sure she wasn't home.
Yep. East.
Yeah. Not good.
Not good.
Not good. But like Alexander said, once the bone was destroyed, there were no more strange noises, no more banging, crashing, people roaming the halls that aren't really there. Nothing.
Well, that's good. It's all come to a stop.
He says, I can give no answer as to what caused these mysterious happenings, but to my mind there was some strange power released that we humans are apt to laugh at, but which was also very real. Looking back on this experience, I still think that it was one of the most horrible experiences that I've been through, happening as it did both in the daytime and the night.
Well, if these things happened as he said they did, absolutely.
Terrifying.
Terrifying. Utterly terrifying.
Especially if you have this like focus, like it's because we did this thing.
Yeah.
This thing is in our house and causing all these problems.
We did this to ourselves. Shit.
What was it? He called it a gruesome relic.
He's not wrong in that. It's
Having this very visceral point that seems to be causing everything.
Yeah. It's not good.
He went on and said, "My own interpretation of the matter is that through some uncanny power of religion, it was brought under destructive control. But if, and I emphasize the word if, it really did carry a curse, as many people thought, the curse certainly did not end when I destroyed the bone by fire. And from 1936 onwards, trouble, sometimes grave, seemed to be always around the corner. My daughter, Egidia, became ill, with the result that she had an operation on her eardrum. Then Zayla had the same trouble in both her ears. My troublesome kidney was still causing me some great discomfort, and altogether, life was very difficult."
Could just be being alive in the 30s.
Well, what I think is interesting is that he's using the language of the curse.
Yep.
It was very well known, related to the ancient Egyptian mummies.
Yeah.
So it would be something they would understand.
It's so strange. When was his memoir published? Do you know?
I can't remember.
How many years after the fact?
This was one of the problems I was having in my research. A lot of the links to sources and things don't exist. So his memoir that he wrote, it says here was unpublished.
Oh.
But I was able to read it. So I don't think there's an official date for it being published because it wasn't.
It wasn't, yeah.
So I don't have an answer to that.
Well, that's okay.
But that does go some way. It kind of discredits your argument because he didn't make money from this because it doesn't seem like it was published.
That's true, eh? He wasn't trying to sell his book.
I'd missed that the first time. I just had it down that it wasn't a very well-known book, so there wasn't publishing information. But according to this source, it was never published.
Interesting. Ooh, that does give it a spookier element. It's like discovering a diary or something. A diary of horrors.
After all of this business with the bone, Alexander and Zayla got divorced in 1939.
Well, I saw that coming.
Yeah. A very rocky marriage in the end. They divorced, and Alexander remarried a woman called Flavia Forbes. And he married Flavia 4 days after his divorce from Zayla.
So it sounds like they split up shortly after this bone business.
Yeah, seems like it. He wasted no time in finding a second Lady Seton, but then they got divorced in 1958.
Oh, well, is he just an arsehole? That's the common factor
Maybe.
here.
But Flavia actually referred to having her title as a curse. She didn't enjoy it and was using that same terminology of the curse.
Interesting.
That Alexander had been using about the bone. She wrote about her terrible time in the papers and talked really widely about how she didn't enjoy being Lady Seton.
Oh. Well, that's a shame.
Alexander married his last wife, Julia Clements, in 1962. And the story goes that when he was on his honeymoon with her, he foresaw his own death. The source I read claimed that Alexander was convinced by this point in his life that he was cursed. He wasn't a skeptic at all anymore. He was convinced that he had been cursed.
Oh, no.
Which would be a shame if that's how he's spending his final years.
Well, he's just become all consumed by this idea of the curse, isn't it? It's very strange.
But he died the following year, in 1963. And Zayla had died the year before, the same year he got remarried.
It's just like self-prophesizing a little bit, though, isn't it?
Yeah. But
Like-
he did see it coming.
I mean, it's a year later. Like, that's not... Maybe, but he must have been towards his 60s by then.
He was born in 1904.
Oh, yeah. And
So he was 58. He's not that old.
not that old. Not really.
It's a really wild story.
That is a wild story.
And unfortunately, I don't have a proper resolution for you. Because that's the story of the Setons and their Egyptian curse.
Oh. Well, the lesson is that some things should be better left alone.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't steal from graves or tombs, and mind your business.
There was a lot of that. I remember during the first COVID lockdown, there was like several archaeological discoveries in that time. Like there was a lead-lined coffin under Notre Dame when it burned down.
Oh.
And there were several other finds like that throughout the world. And I remember the internet just resoundingly shouting, "Put it back. Do not open that. Put it back. Leave it alone. We don't need it." That's enough.
Oh, I just found this box that's got Pandora written on the lid.
Yeah.
Shall I see what's inside
It
of
was
it?
very like that. I remember several of those happening over lockdown. I mean, everyone just been like, nope, don't want it, don't need it.
A lead-lined coffin. Mm-hmm. That's a bit spooky.
It's interesting how the story of the mummy's curse has that effect on people. I think it's something completely different to like believing in ghosts or
Yeah.
monsters and things that I think people would be more lenient in believing that.
Well, because it's just leave it alone. It's ancient.
Yeah.
It's not, well, especially when it's not yours. If you're
Well, yeah.
not Egyptian, it's not your heritage. You know? Just leave it alone. Leave it alone, man.
What do you think? Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I think he has exaggerated a lot of it. I think from his, like, that's the line for me. If something gets thrown across a room, I'm out. Because it happened in the Socky Poltergeist episode where the woman was thrown against a wall or thrown down some stairs. I forget. I'm always like, I don't believe you. There's nothing that would cause that. But like the weird knocking and things, I'm kind of like, well, maybe it was something spooky, but it's a cool story regardless.
I think something weird was happening with that bone. I think Zayla really wanted something weird to happen with that bone.
Yeah.
And that may have been her reason for taking it. Knowing everyone knew about these curses.
Yeah.
So it's gonna look really good if like I'm cursed.
Yeah, it's just like an attention thing, like a claim to fame. Like those YouTubers who talk about their houses being haunted and every time they move, they happen to move to a haunted house.
Well, they talk about being haunted like once a week.
Yeah.
There's something new.
Something new. I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure though?
I don't think so.
It just seems unlikely, you know? But they shouldn't have taken it. That I know for a fact.
I think we're pretty united on that one, and I think people listening universally will think that was a bad call.
Yeah.
Should not have taken it.
Shouldn't have taken it.
Especially because then it was destroyed.
Well, yeah. Not good.
Bad business.
It's bad for business.
Bad business. Shouldn't be doing it.
Shouldn't have done that. He's just a boy. Girl. Well, I think we should wrap up there.
Are you happy?
Yes. I've come out of this episode a lot happier than coming out of the last episode. I'll tell you that much.
Good. I'm glad.
It was a much more like pleasant romp through history than a trudge through the depths of history.
Yeah.
The darkness.
Well, you know, I like to keep a balance.
Yeah, it's good. 2 of those in a row and I'd have to have a week off, I think. Thank you very much for being here.
You're the best. You listening, right? You hear me. I'm in your ear right now. You are the best.
Yep.
You personally.
You are. You rock. And if you like this, share it with a friend. Send it to somebody else who you think would like it.
Come on. Share the curse around.
Share the love. Share the curse.
Let's see how far we can get this curse going.
If you know someone who has a bone at home, send it to them. Be like, you shouldn't have done that.
I mean, sounds wrong.
Huh. Maybe I should have picked my word. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.